Hello to the fall spectacular, great, fall dish we're going to be making here. This is called our fall harvest chicken. And why I call it that is because of the colors, because we have apricots in here, which, have that like kind of really golden color, like you think of with leaves and everything. And then you have the green with the sage. And also because sage really has such, so synonymous with fall. All right, so let me tell you kind of how this recipe works. I feel like this recipe is great because you can marinate it ahead of time and then, do that in the morning and then serve it that night for dinner. You can marinate it on a Sunday morning, serve it Sunday night for dinner. It's kind of a nice, cozy, kind of yummy fall dish. We're using, for this particular dish, we're going to use chicken on the bone. Now, because the chicken goes in the oven, I really recommend the bone with it's called chicken. I know there's a lot of people out there that are not comfortable with the bone on chicken. You need to kind of take a deep breath. It's really good, and you can mix up your pieces. Like for this particular one, we're using thighs, but you can easily do wings, you can do breast, you can do thighs, you can do legs, kind of whatever really you would like. One thing I do say though, if you are going to use the breast, which sometimes can be pretty large, it's a good idea to cut them in half, because then you end up, with just, it's not so big of a piece. All right. So right now I want to show you how we're going to marinate the chicken. Okay, as I said, we have the chicken here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up some of our items here, which I'll show you. So we have some garlic here, which I already have a little bit cut. We have some fresh thyme, and we have lots of sage. Again, that kind of fall, flavors here. So the sage is, I absolutely love sage. So we're just going to slice and chop the sage here. So just forward and down. Remember, you could always check the knife skills video that I have on the library for you guys to kind of get a sense of, to kind of continue working on your knife skills. As I've said before, having really good knife skills makes cooking a lot less overwhelming. Okay, so go a little bit further. I'm going to add this clove of garlic in here. Just give it a little whack to flatten it, right? We've talked about that. Flattened it makes it a lot easier. Okay, I'm going to actually take this garlic here, mix all of that together, get our thyme in there. So all this is going to be like one itch on my chin there, my cheek. Okay. So, okay, not too hard so far, right? You have to buy a packet of sage, right? And then you have to chop some garlic. With the chicken, let's talk about that for a second though, really quick. So with the chicken thighs, sometimes it does come with a lot of extra, kind of flaps of skin. So I did, go ahead and cut some of that off. I do keep the skin on top though, because number one, it tastes good. Number two, it's very satisfying. Don't forget, to eat, eat your food to be satisfied. There's a lot to be said, for having fat, in your diet. It's good for you, number one. Don't always be afraid, of animal fat. It's good for you, and it tastes good, and it's satisfying, kind of in your mouth and in your stomach, and it's like, okay, I just had a really comforting, meal. All right. So let's take our chicken here. That's a little heavier than I thought with one hand. Okay, so we're going to do salt and pepper. We're going to do olive oil. Let's start with our salt and pepper. Now, don't freak out here. We're going to season it with salt now. We're not going to season it later when it comes out, okay? So we're going to be pretty generous. This is kosher salt, so you can be generous with kosher salt. It's not as salty as sea salt. Okay, a little pepper. We're going to do a little bit on the other side as well. Good. Keep going. All right. Might as well start to add our little goodness here. So lots of sage, lots of garlic. Okay, we're going to flip these over. It's okay, don't freak out that I'm putting my hand back in the salt. Salt is a preservative. The bacteria is not going to live in there. Okay, a little more salt. Pepper. One time I remember doing a class on Nantucket this past summer, and one of the moms said to me after the class, she was like, so I just need to use more of everything. right? Like, I need to use more herbs, more salt, more pepper. And I said, yes, you are absolutely right. You need to use more of everything because, you know, it makes your food taste good. So be more generous, people. Be more loving, be more generous. It's all good. Okay, so capers. Put some capers in here. If you don't like capers, you know, leave them out. Not a big deal. So we're going to throw some apricots in here. Okay. You know, if you don't like apricots, you could leave them out, but I mean, they're certainly kind of really part of the dish. Now, however much apricots, you know, is totally up to you. Okay, olive oil. You definitely need a little olive oil here because it's going to kind of help marinate it and give it some love. That looks good. A little bit of the caper juice. Okay. Now, I'm going to get in here with my hands. It's okay. You know, when I have my classes and events and, you know, I have a table of 5 people or 6 people sitting in front of me and I'm like, okay, you know, who's going to be the one? Who's going to get in there with the chicken and kind of, you know, put their hands in the mix and, you know, kind of get all messy. All right, so just give this another minute here. So we have our salt, we have our pepper, we have our capers, we have our apricots. So what happens is this is going to sit like this for a while, right? So now with the apricots, you could do 2 things. So you could take one of the apricots or 2 and you can stick it kind of under the skin here, right? So it goes right under the skin of the chicken, which is pretty cool, right? Find a little opening there. So put a couple in there. You can put the apricots under the chicken, but what I do not recommend is to have the apricots sitting right on top. I'll show you that in a second. So this evenly spaced out here. I'll stick a couple more under the chicken while I finish. So look, you do not want to put the apricots right on top like that, okay? Because what happens when it bakes in the oven, they'll burn, okay? So you want to have them like tucked under the skin, you know, like this. Put a couple under the skin, or you want to have them under the chicken. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this sit, okay? This is like the part that you could do in the morning. Like, that was pretty quick. You chop sage, you chop garlic, you added apricots, salt, pepper, olive oil, and some capers, okay? Not that hard. We'll stick a couple bay leaves in here, put those underneath. Before we go to cook it, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in some brown sugar is gonna go on top, and then some white wine. So we're gonna put white wine all on the bottom. If you didn't want to use white wine, you could just do chicken broth, okay? But you need a little, like, you know, we're gonna put, it's gonna be like a shallow pool kind of underneath here for the rest of this. So stay tuned. Before we put it in the oven, we'll come back and show you the rest of it, and that's it. All right, so the chicken has sat for a while, and I tucked, you know, a bunch of the apricots kind of inside underneath the skin of the chicken. You know, some are sitting underneath, you know, just the whole kind of piece of chicken itself. And we're gonna garnish up and put it in the oven. So white wine. So a fair amount of white wine here. You definitely want like a little pool. You could do, in this situation, you could do wine and broth. The recipe calls for a little bit of wine, a little bit of broth. You could do all broth, you could do all wine, you could do a combination of the 2. Really, either way, it doesn't really matter that much. In this case, we're just gonna do the white wine, because I need to save my broth kind of for some other dishes. So I was kind of like, well, I'm just gonna do that. I'm just loosening this up here because I'm gonna make sure that wine kind of gets underneath everywhere. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna add some brown sugar on top. So just gonna go right on top of the chicken here. A couple sprinkles over each one. Gives it, you know, kind of just a really kind of yummy, like, you know, spiced, kind of sugar, sweet flavor, spicy, sweet flavor. I guess that's what I really meant to say. All right. Looks good. You can definitely see, though, there's definitely like a little, you know, kind of pond of wine here. So don't worry about, you know, kind of like sometimes what recipes say, you know, you just need to make sure that it's, you know, kind of sitting in there. What is going to happen is the wine's going to evaporate. It's going to kind of concentrate and then kind of mix with the flavors of the chicken and the sage and the garlic and the capers. and the bay leaves, and it's going to bake up and be delicious. So we're going to put it in the oven at 350, and we'll check it, about a half hour. I know you all have been desperately waiting for this chicken. Like, you just can't wait. Actually, I can't. It's so yummy. All right, so let's take a look. And we're going to take the temperature and talk about that. So I'm going to grab it out right here. All right, let's see. Steady hand here. Look at that. Okay. It looks fantastic. So now, 165, 170 is what you're looking for here. So we're going to stick our little thermometer in there. Not right next to a bone, because the bone's going to probably resonate a little bit of a higher heat. Okay, getting up there. All right, so that's like 170, 175, so totally done here. We can do another piece, kind of another big piece here. Let's stick it right through there. Let's see, trying to find like a big fat part. Make it thick. All right. It's always good to check a couple pieces, and obviously you're checking the biggest piece, right? Great. Same temperature, like 175. So, okay, so we're good here. So, but I just want you to recognize a couple things. And if you don't have one of these, by the way, like, buy two. Like, you can get them at the grocery store. They're such, really handy little tools to have in the kitchen for whenever you're trying to, check the temperature. Little clip here, right? No, just kidding. Okay. All right. So now let's plate this up. So here's our, remember we did our root puree, which was the parsnips, the potatoes, and the cauliflower, right? We made it like a little bit homey, so there's, so it's not a super smooth puree. It has a little bit of texture to it. All right, so we're gonna get a piece of chicken here. And then we're gonna grab a little bit of kind of the broth too, because you definitely want that yummy sauce here. This one has such great flavor. Look at that. That's where it's all at. It's all in this yummy sauce. Oh. All right. It looks really pretty. Like, I almost don't want to eat it because it looks so good. Okay. I really hope you guys make this. I mean, it really wasn't that hard. Remember, we cut up, some vegetables. We cut up some garlic and some sage. All right. Well, I'm going to take a bite for you because somebody has to take a bite. So I'll make it me. And you can see, like, there's the apricots there, right? There's some other ones, like, kind of floating around. Here's one. But these two are kind of in the inside there. And remember, like, for you people who are kind of freaked out about the skin, okay, you don't have to eat the skin if you don't want to. I personally like it. It tastes good. So we'll get a little bit of the puree and some of the chicken here. Don't mind if I do. I'm just a big fan of dark meat chicken. To me, that's delicious. It would be great reheated if you had, leftovers. It's really good. The broth is delicious. Now, if you do want to make the puree, you could serve this with rice, right? You could make, just the nearest, boxed rice. You could make polenta. A lot of times at work, we also serve it with polenta. I chose not to do the polenta because I don't feel like people make that a lot. So I just decided to go with the puree here, but we have to go because I'm hungry. I'm gonna keep eating. Try this dish.